All right. Great. Thank you, David. And thanks for asking me. And it was such a great pleasure to meet you there that night. And you're right, the energy in that room is incredible. And I love it. That's my home group. Hi, everybody. My name's Joe. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm thrilled whenever I get a chance to do anything for AA, I'm thrilled. Uh, because probably for the next and thank you everybody who keeps their camera on because it's really kind of Zoom meetings are tough to talk to when you're talking to a blank screen sitting in your office talking to yourself. So thanks everybody. And um, I'm really looking forward to I can't wait to hear what I'm going to say. But and I see some of my friends on here from Rojo. It's great to see everybody. And if I can't go through all the screen while I'm talking, I get sidetracked. Oh, Billy Hogue just joined us, so we can go ahead and start the meeting now. Thank God. Uh, and so many people, men that I really admire and respect, that got to meet in person. And I've been to a lot of these places. Kingsport, Tennessee. I'm going to be there at the Appalachian Roundup next year, so I look forward to that. And my wife and I are getting ready to leave Florida to go up to the mountains in North Carolina for the next few months. A little place outside of Asheville called Waynesville, and so it'll be a little cooler up there than it is down here. So let me pretend to care what time it is, 8:13, because like I always remind people, you can't get us out of the bar at closing time, right? But God forbid the speaker goes over in an AA meeting. Jesus could be talking and we'd be going, Lord, that's it. It's time to go. Uh, so we want to keep track of our time here. I am an alcoholic, as described in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, as I'm a real alcoholic. And you know, my home group is a Usual Suspects Men's Big Book Study on Thursday night, and we have an alcoholic home here. My wife's a great member of Alcoholics Anonymous and sponsors a lot of women, and she's 28 years sober. And my sobriety date is September 12th, 1990. I'm going to try and do what I was tasked to do, but I really like talking about the miracles that have happened because that's how I came to believe in Alcoholics Anonymous, watching through you people, I sat around here, didn't believe this was going to work. I came to AA on my 5 days before my 40th birthday. At least it's my sobriety date. I didn't really come to AA because I'd never been to AA, didn't know anybody in AA. I'd never been to a treatment center, a detox. I had no idea what alcoholism was. And truthfully, this may sound like AA heresy. I didn't even really want to quit drinking. What I wanted to do is quit running out, and because I would run out, and then and then you wake up and come to, and I had a friend of mine. He said, W.C. Fields used to say, "I don't have any problem quitting drinking. I've done it hundreds of times." And I've done it hundreds of times. I've quit drinking. So I didn't have any problem quitting drinking. I didn't even think it was really my problem. Um, I knew I had problems, believe me. And you're going to hear shortly, what it was like. We all had the good times, and I don't want to talk about the good times. They were the fun times. That's why I'm an alcoholic. I loved the fun times right from the very beginning. I loved it. I loved, I loved the guy who I was when I had a few drinks in me. I just thought alcohol released the real me. I didn't know how sick and how insecure and how afraid I was until alcohol made me well, right? With those few drinks, and all of a sudden, the sense of ease and comfort. I lived in Miami for a lot of years, and in Miami, there was back in the early 70s and the late 60s, it was a crazy, crazy place. And back in the 70s, and we did a lot of other stuff in Miami because, it was the in thing to do. And I just wanted to fit in. If you would have been smoking horse manure, I'd have probably smoked it with you, I'd have done it. So I did a lot of other drugs, and then I love drugs. They were wonderful. But alcohol was a gateway drug for me. And I don't want to offend anybody if I mention some drugs, but I am a real alcoholic. And if I see there's some old timers on here. So I don't want to offend you if you've never done any drugs, but if you've never done any, too bad, it's too late. You had your chance. Uh, but back in the early days in Miami in the 70s, there was a lot of cocaine and there was a lot of things. Miami was run by the cocaine dealers and the drug money was all taken over. And Time magazine came out with an article called Paradise Lost. And it was about Miami in the early 70s. You can Google this article. And I remember because it talks about in the doctor's opinion, it says, though we drink because we like the effect produced by alcohol. Though it is injurious, we cannot differentiate the true from the false. It's such a hard thing to, why did I love it so much right from the very start? So I read this article, and in this article, they gave the description of why an alcoholic and an addict likes the high. And here's all it said. It creates a sense of well-being. Made me well. I didn't know I was sick till alcohol made me well. It's kind of like health. You don't know you're healthy until you're, right? If you're sick, you don't appreciate your health until you're sick. And then when you get well, for a few days, you really appreciate feeling good again. And but I had this terminal sense of lack. I was insecure. When I got here, the 20s were a lot of fun, but my 30s were a disaster. We crossed this line. They talk about it that to into alcoholism. And I don't know if you crossed the line. I don't know if I drank myself into alcoholism. I don't know if I was born with the gene. It doesn't matter. It's like a cancer patient trying to figure out why he's got cancer. When I was new in here, I used to try and wonder all those things. And I didn't get the answer to any questions. The questions just went away, right? And that's what happened to me in Alcoholics Anonymous. Uh, and I don't know when we cross that invisible line because there's no sign that says, "Oh, you've crossed that line. Too bad, you're an alcoholic now." Um, but I always thought, the great obsession of every alcoholic is that one day he will control and enjoy his drinking. That one day I will beat the game. It says. And that's self-will. I'm going to beat the game. This thing, and when alcoholism stopped being fun, when it started to be drinking and then drugging, to maintain my drinking, because I was one of those drinkers that I would always overshoot the mark. Anybody here ever overshoot the mark when they drank? I always overshot the mark, right? And I would drink to and end up getting sick. And luckily, I found out there's medication you can take so you don't throw up, and it's called cocaine. So, but the problem with that is now you're drinking for 3, 4 days, and I would drink to alcohol poisoning, and it would be one of those. But I loved it in the beginning, but then at the end, and I had a lot of tolerance in the beginning. Didn't really have a lot of hangovers, and I was the guy that everybody let drive. They say I'm a better driver when I'm drunk. I believe that crap too. Um, I don't know if I was or not. I just never killed anybody, at least not that I know of. And nobody showed up and nobody's arrested me. So, um, but what happened is I turned that corner and it became alcoholism. And now I'm drinking against my will. And those are the days, in the beginning, I never lied about drinking. I say, hey, Kev, Rick, let's go out and get drunk tonight. Come on, man, let's go have some fun. I wasn't lying. I loved it. I drank for the effect. I only lied about my drinking in those latter years. When I say tonight, I'm not going to get drunk, no matter what happens. I'm only going to have a couple, but I would always end up drunk. And I don't understand the symptoms of alcoholism because I've never known anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous. This was not on my bucket list to end up going to AA. What happened to me is it ended up getting worse and worse, and I ended up taking some, like Bill did. I took some other stuff to try and control and enjoy my drinking to be able to show up for work, and to try and maintain. But I wasn't a maintainer. I was not a functional alcoholic. I was a full speed ahead right from the very beginning. 90 miles an hour, hair on fire. I'm doing this all the time. And I'd take a drink before I'd go to and work. I've had a million jobs because I'm a great starter. But what would happen is I would end up somehow taking a drink night before I'm supposed to show up for work. And when I drink, and I didn't understand these symptoms like they talk about, this phenomenon of craving, I take a drink, and then no matter what I say, tonight I'm only going to have two. But at the bottom of that second drink, I change my mind. I'm going to have two more. And the next thing you know, strolling out of the bar at closing time. Well, I'm only going to stop in the after hours club and have a couple more. Next thing you know, I'm strolling out of the after hours club and the sun's coming up. And I've done it a million times. And then I go, all right, I'll shower and clean up. I go to work. I don't need sleep. I'm young. I'm strong. I've done it 100 times. I'm going to go to work. I'll be fine. I can put in 8 hours and go home. But the problem is that now I'm starting sobering up and I'm going through this alcoholic withdrawal. So on my way to work, I stop and I have a couple beers. I buy a couple tall beers at the 7-Eleven just to take the edge off so I could show up for work. I drink those 2 beers, and you know what I say? Yeah, the phenomenon of craving kicks in. I don't know what's the phenomenon of craving. All I know is I say, who needs that stupid job anyway? I'm going down to the Bamboo Lounge, play a few games. I'm going to have a few drinks there, call the dope man, and I'll be fine. And that would be it. There would be nothing more important. And I can't understand that I do this over and over again until the very end of my drinking. And I'm going to tell you how I drank. Here's my drunkalog. When I drink, I don't stop, I run out. I don't know how you do it, but that's how I do. I run out or pass out. I'm not stopping. The party's not ending till there's no more, till I can't do anymore, till I can't get anymore. And I don't quit. I have to get stopped. Something has to happen to me. Blue lights in the rearview mirror. She's going to throw me out. Boss is going to fire me. Judge is going to sentence me. Something has to happen. And then I have that moment of clarity. Oh my God, I got to stop. I can't tell you the amount of times I would wake up in the morning after a binge, right? You remember those days? Crack your eyelids open. And at the end, now this is really bleak. At the end, you crack your eyelids open and go, damn, I'm not dead. Now, I wasn't suicidal. I just didn't want to wake up in my life anymore. I can start to, oh God, again. The horror would be on me because the money's gone, the booze is gone, the job's gone, she's gone. One more time, I did it again. Holy crap. And then the remorse, Bill says the remorse, horror, and hopelessness of the morning after are unforgettable. That's why I'm here. I'm not here because of the alcohol or the drugs. I'm here because I kept running out and waking up sober. And at the end, sober was intolerable. What I really suffered from was untreated sobriety. I couldn't take sobriety anymore. Sandy Beach used to say, I remember he would say, I'd get off work at 5 o'clock and run into the bar, tell the bartender, I got a bad case of sobriety. You got anything for it? And that's exactly what it was like. When I heard that, I could relate to it. I would come to and say, God, I got a terrible case of sobriety. I need some, because I couldn't face the failed life. 5 days before my 40th birthday, I'm going to fast forward because let me tell you where I was and where alcohol and where I took me. My best thinking, my best effort. My sponsor used to say to me when I first met him, he said, haven't you tried to be happy and successful your whole life? He said, think about it. Haven't you tried to really be as happy as you can be and as successful? I thought, well, yeah, I guess I have. He goes, well, you suck at it. If you ended up in AA, you suck at it. And that was really the truth. And I couldn't see that. I couldn't see what I couldn't see until the very last day of my drink. My sobriety date is September 12th, 1990. I do not remember a lot about September 12th, 1990. I remember a hell of a lot about September 11th, 1990, the day before I got here. Terrible day in the life of Joe. I mean, and let me tell you where I was on September 12th, 1990. I was in a Skid Row motel room in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with my 2-year-old son and his mother. This filthy little squalor, the only thing I owned was a crib, and my little boy was in that crib. And if Child Welfare Services would have walked through the door that day, they would have arrested me, and I would be in jail for child abuse. Now, I never wanted to turn out to be that guy. My little boy was in that crib, and he had filthy diapers, and he had a bottle that had watered down milk in it. And that's where my alcohol and drugs, my best effort to be happy and successful, had taken me to that motel room 5 days before my 40th birthday. And we had been in that motel probably for a couple of months. It's where I was living. And I was unemployed and unemployable. And I had failed at every area of my life as a parent, in a relationship, as an employee, financially, legally. I hadn't paid the IRS in 20 years. I was just And I never meant to turn out to be that guy. I was there 2 years earlier when that little 2-year-old boy was born. We had a little house in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I had a good, see, once she got pregnant, my girlfriend, I said, okay, I'm going to be a dad. It's time to straighten out. Right? I was 37 years old, going to be 38. Time to straighten out. Maybe this little boy will straighten me out. I want to be a parent and I'm going to get a real job and try and straighten my life out. And I really thought I could do that. I didn't understand alcoholism. I never met any of you, didn't know what it was. And for a little while, you can outrun it. If you're making enough money, you can maybe keep the wolves at the door for a little while, but you can't outrun alcoholism, not for long. And and I was there in the hospital the day that little boy was born, man. I had a real job. We had bought a little house. We were going to be a family. And I established credit and got my life back together as best I can. And in the hospital, they put that little boy in my arms from the nursery. And I fell in love with another human being for the first time in my life. I looked at that little boy and I started to cry. And I made him all the promises every parent probably makes their child. I said, you're going to know you're loved. We're going to be able to walk down the street arm in arm, tell each other we love each other. We're going to have so much fun. I'm going to coach you in Little League and baseball, basketball, and football. Our lives are going to be great. And for the first time in my life, I knew I loved another person, that I would lay down in front of a bus for another person. I had never been in love like that before. And I meant it. And I meant all those things I said. And I put that little boy down in the crib and I walked into the waiting room and some friends were there. And here's what happened. They said, let's have a drink to celebrate the birth of your son. And I took a drink. And 8 days later, I showed up. See, when I drink, I don't stop, I run out. When I drink, that's what I do. I drink. I don't know that that's alcoholism. I don't know what that phenomenon creates. I don't understand it. So I think that's the problem. Just don't drink. You know how many times I've tried not to just drink? Haven't you quit before? I mean, if that's just my problem, that was an easy solution. Just don't take the first drink. It's like that lie. I've quit hundreds of times. I have no problem quitting. The mystery is that firm resolution that I wake up with after a binge. Remember that firm resolution? God, everybody's mad at me. I'm mad at me. I've done it again one more time. I got that firm resolution. I am not doing this anymore. Swear to God, mean it from every fiber of my body. And within a short time, sometimes a few hours, that feeling would just evaporate. It would just go away. That firm resolution. Bill talks about it in his story. Where was that firm resolution? Where was that determination to not do this again? And when you read Bill's story, I started to see me because you see over and over again, you go, surely after that happened, he's not going to drink again. Surely after they lost, I know, certainly he wouldn't drink after this. Our book says after his last binge has landed him in bankruptcy and divorce court, why does he walk straight into a bar and take another drink? Why does he behave like this if hundreds of experiences are shown? Well, I can't put together that. I can't connect the dots. I don't know these experiences. I still think I can quit this thing. It can't be killing me. And here's what happened. Over and over again, I kept doing that until September 11th, 1990. And I'll tell you what happened to me. I came to from my last binge up until now, and I hope it's my last binge. And I cracked my eyelids open in that motel room like I'd done so many times before. I went, damn, I'm not dead. And the filth and squalor. And one more time, it was all gone. Money, booze, drugs, job, opportunity, youth, all gone one more time. And then the remorse, horror, and hopelessness was on me. And I strolled over to that crib, tears in my eyes, like I'd done so many times before. Looked at my little boy, and so many times I would say, I'm going to get us out of this motel. I'm going to be a dad. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to pay the bills. Well, that day I tried to do the same thing. I stood there and looked at my little boy, and he looked at me, and and I said, I'm going to get us out of this motel. And that day there was a voice in my head. I don't know if it was an idea. I don't know if it was audible. I don't know what, but here's what it said. No, you're not. And that day, reality pierced the delusion. I couldn't buy the lie one more time. See, I get drunk on the lie. Here's the lie. This time I'm not going to drink. I'm going to go to work, get a job, pay the bills. See, that's what a normal person would do if he screwed up. I don't know that I'm not normal. I don't know what alcoholism is. I don't know that I'm going to drink no matter what. I remember they used to say that. I heard them say it in a meeting one time. We don't drink no matter what. Well, if I could not drink no matter what, I wouldn't need you. You could take that book and make soup out of it, but I don't need it. If I could not drink no matter what, I drink no matter what. And I looked at that little boy and I knew even the love of that little boy, the strong, no human power. That day I knew no human power is going to relieve my alcoholism. And I knew what the problem was. I didn't know you. I didn't know what it was. There was a word for it called alcoholism, but I knew I was going to drink again no matter what. And uh, and the courage to do battle wasn't there anymore. The consequences were now connected to the drink. And that's what reality pierced the delusion, and I couldn't buy the lie. And I did something crazy that day. I made a decision, and here's what the decision was. I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to quit quitting. I'm done waking up and tell myself it's going to be different. It's not going to be different. It was over. Bill talks about it in his story. He says, so this is the end, the curtain, it seemed. So I was to go on joining the endless procession of sots that had gone on before me. That's exact. So this is what it's like. So this is how I die, is what I thought. In the gutter or in jail. I didn't know. My best effort, and I'm one of these guys that are going to end up drunk and a drug addict in the gutter or in jail. And it's kind of like falling off a skyscraper and on the way down you go. So this is how it ends. I was I was sure it was over. The battle was over. I'd lost. And I wasn't even trying to get sober. That's the day before I got sober. That's the day before my sobriety date. And I surrendered. This is it. He says, quicksand stretched around me in all directions. There was no friendly direction. There was no way I'm going to leave. I left that motel room. There was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to go. We were going to get thrown out of there, and there was nowhere to go. And I had dragged this little family into the gutter with me. And the remorse and horror were just so deep and so terrible, I didn't know what to do. Now that's where my best thinking got me, and I'm going to tell you now where God took me, because it had to be divine. I don't care what you want to call it, but I'm going to give credit where I think credit's due. Bill talks about the flimsy reed. What seemed to be a flimsy reed proved to be the powerful and loving hand of God. And we all had that flimsy reed. I don't know what yours is, but I'm going to tell you what mine was. September 11th, 1990, I'm in that motel room, and there was a knock on the door. Now, at this stage of your drinking, you do not open the door. Publishers Clearinghouse is not out there with the big check and the balloons going, hey, no, there's no good news on the other side of the door. There's tape on the peephole. There's no light can escape. Normally when there was a knock on the door, there would be panic stricken but that night I did something strange. I got up and I walked over and I opened the door without even looking. And I wondered after I got sober why I did that. And I know now why I did it. Because once I surrendered to being a drunk and an alcoholic, and that this is how I was going to die, I didn't have to hide it anymore. There was a freedom in it. Crazy as it sounds. I had surrendered to be what I was. See, that's what Bill did. He didn't surrender to get sober. He surrendered to die. So this is the end, the curtain. So I was going to join these endless procession of sots. How dark it is before the dawn. And that's what happened. That night I opened the door and I believe God walked in. He was short, fat, bald, and looked a lot like my younger brother. And he had been trying to find me. Everybody had been trying to find me. There were people trying to find me that wanted to kill me. Everybody's been trying to find me. And, we started living underneath the radar, man. And he walked in and I just sat there in a stupor, stoned one more time. And he didn't say anything. It's just like we do in here. He didn't lecture me. He didn't tell me, look what you're doing to your son. But I could see the horror in his eyes when he looked at the filth and squalor and looked at my little boy and looked at where we were at. And he just put his phone number down and he said, if you want, I believe he tugged on the last moral fiber that might have been attached, that flimsy reed. And here's what he said. I believed it was divinely inspired. It was the only thing I would have heard. He said, if you want help, which I didn't, He said, I will watch your son while you get help, which I did want somebody to take my son because I knew I was going to do anything it took to just stay drunk till the end. I was going to be a bitter ender, go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of my intolerable situation. And that's the day before I got sober. And he turned around and he walked out. But he put his phone number down on a piece of paper. And on September 12th, 1990, I came to and I made that phone call because there was nowhere else to go. And I wanted him to take my son. Now, I had called, so now I had to go through with the appearance of wanting help. I didn't know about AA, didn't know anybody in AA, but I'd heard of treatment and they tried to find a treatment center. I want the Betty Ford Center. I want the Olympic pool, the weight room, right? I want I'm going to get a little sun, 30. I'd heard a little bit about treatment, that they make you well. I don't know what they do to you in there. They teach you something or they give you a suppository or they, something. And I don't know, but I'll go. And I had to go through with it because I wanted them to watch my boy. Because once I got out of sight, then I could go just end this thing, drink to the end. And they finally found a treatment center. It was a place that took in indigents, people off the street or out of prison. And it was a old apartment building that the United Way had converted into a treatment center, and it was in the hood in Miami. And I know because I used to buy drugs around the corner. And they took me into this treatment center. And I remember my brother dropped me off. They took me in and they told me, oh, this is a 6-month treatment. So I said, 6 months? I can't stay 6 months. I'm a dad. You see, now I'm a dad, right? And but I needed to get in there, so I told them what they wanted to hear. And here's how I got exposed to you guys. That night was September 17th, 1990, my 40th birthday. I'm in a treatment center for homeless people in the hood in Miami on my 40th birthday. The worst day of my life, I thought. I've been wrong about a lot of things. That was one more thing I was wrong about. And that night, I'm standing outside the treatment center smoking with all the other guys. I'm trying to be the cool guy in the treatment center. What I was the old guy. I'm 40 years old. They're all young people in there. I'm telling them the tale. I used to own a bar on South Beach, which I did. I drank that away. And I'm telling them I was a cool guy. Man, you don't know who I am. They used to call me Miami Joe. Nobody called me Miami Joe. You're really lame if you give yourself your own nickname, okay? And that was me. And I'm trying to impress these guys. And this young guy pulls up, brand new Nissan, gets out of the car. He's got a collared shirt on. He's got creased pants on, 27-year-old kid. And I don't know what he's doing there. I think he's a counselor or something, right? He's bringing an AA meeting. I don't know that. I'd never been to one. I wouldn't recognize it. But I'm thinking, man, I wonder what they're paying this guy. I bet I could do this gig. Your ego grows back so fast. For the first 30 days in treatment, they made me wear a sign that said, I am not a counselor. And because I'm the know-it-all. I'm the guy that I'm pretending to know stuff I don't know my whole life. I'm covering myself and trying to pretend I don't know who I am. And this guy comes in and he's having an AA meeting. And he said a few things I didn't agree with. He said, you never have to take another drink or drug again if you don't feel like it. I knew that was crap because I had not felt like it for a lot of time. But he said something that caught my attention. He said that you never have to feel the way you feel tonight again. And I would have traded my life for anybody. There were 50 people in that treatment center, homeless people, people out of prison, indigents. And I would have traded my life for anybody's life in that treatment center that night. Today, I would not trade my life for anybody's. And then he said, this is a 6-month treatment center. And he got my attention. He said, I graduated from this treatment center 2 years earlier. And I thought, holy cow. He turned his life around and he told his story. And he was in this treatment center and he turned his life around. He's got a car and looks like a clean cut kid. And, because of Alcoholics Anonymous, I get to move around today virtually undetected amongst normal people. And that's what he was doing. He was walking around virtually undetected. And then he said something. He said, listen, I got bad news for you. At the end of 6 months, there won't be 5 of you left. And he was right. There were only 2 of us. I don't know why I was one, but I was one. And I left that treatment center not thinking I was going to get sober. They didn't talk about AA. they really talked about coming back for aftercare, which I wasn't going to. And I left that treatment center wondering, I wonder how long this can last. I don't want to screw up, but I wonder how long before I screw up. I always screwed up. And I went where every good 40-year-old alcoholic goes. Mom, I'm home. And I went up to Central Florida where my folks lived in an adult retirement community in a little town called Lady Lake, Florida. It's in the center of the state of Florida. If Florida was going to get an enema, it's where they'd insert the tube. There's nothing there. It is nothing but retiree. I was like the young guy in that community of all retirees, and it was all manufactured homes and trailer parks, and uh, and I'm sitting there on my I remember the date, March 21st, 1991. March 21st, 1991. I'm sitting there on her little front porch, little screened-in patio of her little manufactured home, and there was an old guy next door. And I had no plans of going to AA. None. Kindness of strangers. Most of us are here because of the kindness of strangers. And this little old man was watering his lawn next door, and I could see him kind of looking at me and sliding over a little bit and kind of getting closer. And he says, "Hey, how are you? My name's Frank." I said, "Hi, Frank. I'm Joe." And he says, "Hey, I hear you had a little trouble with alcohol." And I go, "Oh, geez, Mom's been talking, huh?" And sure enough, he says, "Would you like to go to an AA meeting tonight?" Well, I thought about it, and I said, "Well, it's either stay home and watch Murder, She Wrote with Mom, or go to an AA meeting. I guess maybe I'll meet Miss AA. I'll go to a meeting." And listen, I'm going to describe something, and that's what we do here. That's what this is all about. It's really all about love and forgiveness. That's all it is. And forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, and practicing love on a daily basis. That's all we got. And uh, he says, "I'll pick you up at 6:45." 6:45, that old man was sitting outside with his car idling. He never honked the horn. He never came in and pounded on the door. He just waited patiently for me. I was so dumb, I didn't know I was dumb. And to come out. And I got into his car and we drove off and I smoked his cigarettes and we went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there were probably 50 people there. They were all 1,000 years old. You couldn't put together a whole set of teeth. And they would be, "Well, if you want what we have," and I would say, "I don't want a damn thing you have. You're so lucky I'm desperate or I wouldn't be here." I didn't know that desperation is the entrance fee to Alcoholics Anonymous. Nobody comes here. I love when people go, "I came here on my own." Nobody comes to AA on their own. This is gun to the head recovery. AA is the last thing on the bucket list, the last thing that we're going to try, first thing that works. And that little old man, and the very next day, I'm having dinner with my mom, and there he is again, sitting outside idling his little car. And I thought I could outweight him, but I couldn't. And we started going to meetings, and he took me to a meeting every day. I go, "Man, you're a fanatic. Don't you take any damn time off? What about Monday night football? Don't you stay home on Mondays?" No. Every night we're on the circuit going to a different meeting. And he worked at Intergroup answering the phone. So every night we're picking up some other new guy, right? He was always on a 12-step call, and I'm his wingman, so I'm riding with him because I don't have a car and I don't have money for cigarettes. He smokes Marlboro Reds, which is he had what I wanted, Marlboro Reds and a car, right? And we'd be going to meetings, picking up some new guy, and I'd have to race out after the meeting because these new guys all want the front seat. And I would tell them, "Hey, he's my date, okay?" And but Frank set me free, and he taught me so many things on the front seat of that car going to meetings. He wasn't a big book thumper, he was a big book liver, and he lived that book. Every night he would answer the phones at Intergroup and go pick up somebody. We were on a 12-step call every damn night. And he knew how to make me do things I didn't want to do. I remember he said, "Well, tonight we're going to Ocala." "Oh, Ocala. Ocala's an hour away, Frank." I'm thinking, God, I got to drive in a car for an hour with him and some lame new guy, right? An hour up there and then sit in a meeting with all these old farts for another hour and an hour back. And he had a way of making you want to go. He would say, "Listen, you're going to love this meeting. There's a lot of ex-strippers there." And I would say, "Okay, let's go to Ocala." And we get there, but he didn't tell me they were all 80 years old, right? So, and the problem, and by that time, coming from a 6-month treatment center for indigents, The 80-year-olds start to look pretty good. Hey, Graham, you want to go for coffee after the meeting? Right. And but he set me free in so many ways. He told me what step one and step two was for me. He says, I'm going to give you're a smart guy, smart South Beach guy. Let me tell you step one and step two in a language you can understand. Step one's very simple. You're screwed. And I looked at him, I go, well, what? Yeah, that's it. It's a diagnosis. You got a fatal progressive illness. You're screwed. And apart from divine intervention, you're going to die of this thing. Wow. I said, well, if I'm screwed, and he goes, yep, if you're not 100% convinced you'll drink again, you will drink again. And I thought, that's crazy. If I'm going to drink again, it sounds like it's going to take a friggin' miracle. He says, that's right. That's step two. And that's exactly what we got here. It's going to take a power greater than me to restore me to sanity. And and then I would tell him, well, what about if I, and then we got to step three, and I said, well, I got a problem with God. He goes, forget about God. He goes, you don't need to believe in God. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to start acting like a person would act if he believed in God. See, down deep inside of every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God. I always hated when people said, you know what the right thing to do, because you really do know what the right thing to do is, right? We have a built-in compass inside of us, but I've been drowning it out and trying to quiet it with alcohol and drugs for so long, I couldn't hear it anymore. Frank was the sound of that compass for a long time. And he would tell me, you know what? He said, you don't have to believe in God. We're just going to take the step. Do the prayer. Take the step. Lay aside everything you think you know about God. Let's put it over there. Let's go through this process of these 12 steps and let's see what shows up in your life. Let's see, because we don't believe in God. We don't have a dogma of God. We have an experience of God, right? It's like that Sanskrit proverb that we hear. And this is how it happened for me. It says, I sought my God, I could not see. I sought myself eluded me. I sought my brother and found all three. And that's what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. He got me doing the manual labor of Alcoholics Anonymous, going to meetings, making coffee. And when I finally got a car, he says, okay, I want you to go pick up this new guy. You're going to go take him to a meeting. I avoided doing steps 4 and 5. I did and I lived next door to Frank. My parents had gone back up north and I was staying in their place while they were gone. And he lived right next door. And I don't want to do step 4, but I'm a slick guy. So all the curtains are drawn so tight, no light could escape. When I'd come home, by this time I had a little car. I'd come home, I'd turn the engine off and the headlights off so the lights didn't flash across his house. And then I'd watch his house in the daytime. When his car was gone, I'd call his house. And back then we had message machines in your house, right? So it would record a recorder, and I would leave a recording on his phone. I'd say, Frank, where are you? I want to do this fifth step, man. Where you been? I'm avoiding him like the plague. He can't find me, right? But I'm making it sound like it's him. I did 4 and 5 with Frank, and we ended up, and I did the flyover 6 and 7. But but we were we were doing the deal, and it kept me sober. And I really, I thought the problem was alcohol or drugs. It's like, I don't know what the real problem was. It's like saying, coming in here and you're drowning and you go, I want you to teach me to swim. And we don't teach people to swim here. We teach you to be lifeguards. And I didn't know. I don't want to be a lifeguard. I just want you to teach. I want to shoplift recovery and I want to go back to South Beach and be a successful version of me. Down deep inside, that's really what I wanted. I don't want to join your club. I'll go to the meetings and it's great. You didn't throw me out, but I don't really want to join your club. And I'm trying to get everything I can to get the benefits without the work. I'm a guy that wants A's with D effort. I go to the gym. When I get up from the weight machine, I take the pin and I move it down so it looks like I was doing more weight. So just in case somebody sits down there, they go, wow, that guy was really pumping some iron. I've been a phony my whole life. I've been trying to improve. It's more important to look good than to actually do the work and be good. In AA, we do the work. I go to treatment centers. I have a treatment center commitment on Fridays. I have a detox commitment on Mondays. When I'm driving there, it's probably an hour away. Between the time I get ready, go to the treatment center, drive back home, it's probably about 2.5, 3 hours. And you know what the great benefit is? Not that I'm not in treatment. The great benefit is that for those, and it doesn't matter what I say when I'm taking the meeting in there. The great benefit is that while I'm doing that, I am not full of crap. I'm in the game. I'm in AA. And if I keep doing enough stuff it's in the game, I start to feel better about me. In AA, we talk to people, we say, oh, we're going to love you till you can love yourself. That isn't what happened to me. They loved me till I could love somebody else. Because you're not going to get well till you can love somebody else. Until we hear somebody else do their story, till we sponsor somebody, till we help somebody, until we start carrying this message. And luckily, I had a guy that was all about carrying the message, Frank, and he taught me all these things. And Frank had a way of making he would say things like this. I would go, Frank, I'd wake up some days fully, the horror would be on you. You don't need any reason. I wake up gripped in fear, and we don't need a reason. He would go, oh, no, no, I understand. Don't worry about that. That's no big deal. This is June. June is a terrible month for alcoholics. Now, July's coming. It's a great month for alcoholics. And I would, really? Okay, great. I mean, but you know what? It is. The weather changes, just like our emotions. They change. I think it's always terminal. If I feel bad, it's terminal. Restless, irritable, and discontent for a normal person is just a bad day. For an alcoholic, it's a condition I got to treat. We got to treat this condition. This is intolerable. I met I ended up, Frank was working at Intergroup with a woman. He was telling me about her, and she was beautiful. And I fell in love with her before I even met her. I became an AA stalker. I ended up meeting her, and she had two kids and was divorced. And I had custody of my son back then. And, my son's mother never stayed sober, went to prison, has been in and out of prison, and never could stay sober, even to this day. She's 65 years old, and I think she's probably got, if she's sober at all, she's got a week or two. I mean, not a tooth in her head. So I got custody of my son within the first year I was sober. And thank God I did. That little boy taught me how to love and that commitment to being a dad. Scared the hell out of me, but it kept me sober many a night when I would have escaped. Right? That little boy in the next room. And we ended up getting married and had a big AA wedding. I was, 3 years sober, and she was 4 years sober, and we get this big wedding. And life starts getting good when when you're not committing felonies on a daily basis and showing up for work, life gets better. And it started to get better. I started to get promoted in jobs and work and started, we had this little family, and all of a sudden I forgot, we just get 1 degree off. I start worshiping the gifts instead of the giver, right? And my ego I'm running on self-will and I don't know it. There's no signs that say speed bump ahead. You're running on self-will. There's no sign. We just get off a little bit. And I'm keeping my defects just below the level of a relapse and my behavior just below the level of an amends. I can manage these. They're not relapse defects. And they start, and little by little, I start doing stuff and I start making a lot of money, getting prestige at work. And I uproot this little family and I move them back down to South Florida. I get away from my sponsor, my sobriety group and my support group. And I uproot this family and we start fighting. And I'm not going to AA because I'm working 12, 14 hours a day and my job is now really important. And I'll catch up on AA once I get, I had the cart before the horse. Material success preceded spiritual well-being instead of the other way around. And at 5 years sober, 5.5 years sober, I come home one day and my wife says to me, because I'm lying, I'm hiding money, I'm doing things a married man shouldn't do. And my wife says, if this is being married to you, we're only married over a little over a year. She says, I want a divorce. And she threw me out. And I'm so enraged. And now, if you get thrown out of the house, we know whose house it is. It's not yours. And I end up leaving that house in tow. And my wife said something to me. I didn't hear it then. She said, can't you see all your relationships end the same? And I couldn't see it. And I just couldn't see that behavior, couldn't connect the dots, just like with drinking. And now I'm so enraged that it affects my work. And a short time later, I get fired from the best job I ever had. And within a month, I'm fired and I'm divorced. And I can't go to AA. She got custody of AA because she's such a sweet person. They know it's got to be me. So I can't go to those meetings anymore. And now I'm hit and miss AA meetings every once in a while. I'm broke. I don't know what to do. I'm humiliated. I can't go back to the business because I just got fired. What am I going to tell people? I got fired from this high prestigious job. Now I got to go back and start at the bottom as a common salesman. I can't do that. I don't know what to do. And luckily and I wanted to drink more than I wanted to stay sober. And this was my second surrender. I found a bar that had a name that attracted me. I drove by it one day and I was in so much pain and so much agony that I drove by this bar one day and the name caught my attention. It said bar. And, uh, and I said, oh, I can be a big shot in there for a little while. It was a dump. It was in Lake Worth, Florida on US 1. And I'll tell you what, I was not sleeping, I was not eating, and my little boy was asleep one day in the back room, and I cursed God, if this is sobriety, you can have it. I couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't take the pain, and the anger, and the rage. And I got up and I left him asleep and alone in that house, and drove across town to that bar. And I sat outside of that bar wanting to drink, and I had butterflies in my stomach because I knew I had unworked the steps all the way back to step one. But I knew that if I take a drink, my lifestyle's about to change. And while I was sitting there in that car, I was at a red light. I got the butterfly. I'm going in to drink tonight. I don't care. And I looked down the street, and down the street, there's a broken down van with its hood up. And underneath the street light, I could see its license plate. It said, "Have you prayed today?" And I remember I said the serenity prayer. I don't know why I did. And once again, that flimsy reed. And I drove across town, back across town. I didn't go in that bar. I drove back across town 40 minutes to a meeting I'd been to one time a year earlier and walked into the back of that room and sat down. And there were about 100 people there at that meeting. And there was a man at the podium. He says, tonight's anniversary night. We're celebrating anniversaries. Is there anybody here celebrating an anniversary in the month of September? And like an idiot, I raised my hand. And everybody clapped. How long do you have? I said 6 years. It was my 6 year anniversary. And I'm at a meeting and they don't know I was going to drink 40 minutes earlier. He says, well, at this meeting, the celebrants share for about 5, 10 minutes how they stayed sober this year. Since we have a visitor, why don't you start us off? And I got up and walked up to the stage and got behind the podium and I had to share and looked out and I saw your faces and I couldn't speak. And I stood there crying. And then I sobbed. And I just stood there sobbing. It seemed like forever. And finally, I got the words out. I said, I need help. I'm lost. I don't know how to do this thing. And once again, the kindness of strangers. Two men came up and they took me off the stage because I was frozen, just standing there crying. And they took me back in the kitchen. And they sat with me till 11:30 that night because they didn't want to leave me alone. And they picked me up at 7:30 the next morning. And I went to 3 meetings that day with these guys. And they said, we're going to show you how to do this thing one more time. And my life changed again. And I knew that my life was truly, and I was finally willing to surrender at a deeper level, not just the alcohol and the drugs, my romantic life, my financial life, my parenting life, every part of my life. You can have it. And I went through the steps again at a deeper level than I'd ever gone before. And what happened was I took a crummy job so I could take my son to school and pick him up from school. And I learned how to be a dad. And I coached him in Little League and baseball, basketball, football. I became the parent I promised I would be. And then I took this crummy job. And when I took that job as a matter of being, and I created it like service, like Chuck C said, I made it a part of my service work. And a crazy thing happened. I fell in love with that job. And I've never had to work a day since. It's been 28 years. That's been my business ever since. And then my wife and I ran into each other a year later, didn't see each other, didn't throw myself into a relationship to get over a relationship. And we ran into each other at an AA conference and we knew we were always in love. We just didn't know how to express it. And we started dating and we got back together and we knew that we were going to have God. And we started praying together in the morning. Step 11 says we invite our spouses into our morning meditation. And then God saw fit to give the worst parent in the world another opportunity. And we had twin boys. And those boys run my business today. And they've never drank, don't drug, They're the greatest kids. They're 28 years old. They're the light of our lives. Well, they will be 28 in July. And today, like I said, I get to walk around virtually undetected amongst normal people. AA is what I do for a living. My job is how I support my livelihood. That's what I do today. I love my recovery. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love every one of you, and I don't care what you do. So thank you for letting me be here.